All entrepreneurs make mistake, and I, just like everyone else, has made quite a few mistakes. The important thing is that you learn from them. So today's episode of my YouTube live, the Ready Set Go Consult live, I'm going to be talking about some of the mistakes that I've made as an entrepreneur. So hopefully you can learn from my mistakes. So I have a list here prepared. And I'm going to start just going through those. If you have any questions, for those of you that are here, whether you're here with me live or you're watching this, after it's been aired, drop any comments, any questions you may have. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. But yeah, this is a really good topic, and I don't think enough entrepreneurs are talking about it. All right. So, for those of you who don't know, my name is Patrice Davis. I am the founder of Grants Works. It is a grant consulting company. And no, we're not grant writers. We do everything grant writing, but also our specialty is in grant management. That's compliance and all of those things. And then after about almost 3 years of being in business, I launched Ready, Set, Go Consult because there was a lot that I learned as a consultant that I figured, a lot of new consultants, new independent consultants would be interested in learning about or learning from my experiences, and so I created Ready Set Go Consult. So you can find out more at readysetgoconsult.com, and you can get free ebook, a free masterclass, and just a lot of information. And there's also a blog with quite a few blogs about how I travel while I work, think tips about creating proposals, and just a lot of things that's on that site. So we're going to jump into why you're here, and that is to really learn from my mistakes. Let me set this thing up here. It took me some time to go live. There are not a lot of really clear in your face buttons. So when you schedule a live 2 3 4 days, sometimes a week out, you schedule it, and then you think you're ready to go, and then just at, let's say, 7 o'clock, which is the time we go live, that's when I realized that, hey, how do I go to live again? So I recorded it so I won't make that mistake again. So that's one mistake that you're going to learn from. Let's now talk about my mistakes as a newbie independent consultant. Now, the first thing I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page about is that, hey there, Takia. One of the things I want to make sure everybody's on the same page about is that you have independent consultants, of which I have my independent consulting firm, right? And you have a lot of people who are independent consultants. These are folks that have a lot of expertise in their industry, years of experience. And so they take all of that knowledge. They've learned a lot. They've worked in different environments. So they decide, you know what, let me package my knowledge into services that I know that the industry would be interested in. So I'm an independent consultant. This is different from, consultants that work at, some of the very large consulting firms. Some of us are very familiar with the Big Four. I can't remember some of them now. Let's say Ernst & Young, I believe, is one of the Big Four. KPMG may still be one of the top four, or the Big Four consulting firms. So all of this is about, avoiding mistakes, learning from my lessons, running an independent consulting business. So I'm going to go right into the first mistake that I think I made when I started my business. And it started with the very first day that I launched my business. And to me, a launch is when I went ahead and registered, actually made good on actually, starting the business. How did I start the business? I actually decided to make the name of my firm a DBA, doing business as. So instead of registering the name of my firm as its own business in the state where I reside, I decided to make it a DBA of an existing business that I already had. Why was that a mistake? That was a mistake, number one, because it cost me more money, right? And it cost me more money and more time. So in order for me to register as a DBA, a doing business as, I had to go to a county office. I had to pay, like, I believe $160 or $170 fee. Then I had to Wait for the county organ, let's say it's a county news organ of that particular county, to register or actually publish that, hey, Patrice Davis is actually doing business as this entity name under an existing entity. So it costs more money and it costs more time. And here's the other mistake that I think I made, is that it adds to complications like when you're registering your business. So one of the first things that I did after I started my business is, of course, you then have to get an EIN, employee identification number, also called a taxpayer identification number. I'm putting in almost every form the business name, DBA, Grants Works. So everything that I do, I have to do under the business name, DBA, Grants Works. To me, that's unnecessary. I don't do a lot of things under my business name, but just want to make sure you guys are aware that you really think through whether or not you should use a DBA or not. I regret it, but it's not it's not something that's destructive or a problem, but it's just something that I think is an inconvenience. And why pay more money and use more of your time for something that will be an inconvenience in the long run? At least it's the long run for me. I will not. Let me also end by saying I am not an attorney. I am not, so I don't specialize in anything along those lines. I definitely think that you should speak with an attorney if you're concerned about whether or not you already have an existing business and you want to do a DBA, and think through what your business, your bank accounts, your business bank accounts, some legal considerations that you may have that I don't. I didn't have any of those, and so I basically did something more complicated than I needed to. But if you have questions because maybe you have other business things going on, definitely speak with an attorney who specializes in that, to be able to, really make an informed decision. All right. So I would think that another mistake that I made, and is something that I started doing probably a little bit too late in my business, but thankfully I did it. And when I did it really, really well. And so the second thing is to build processes as you go, right? So what does that mean? That means every time you do something, you're going to have to do several times a year, or at some point you're going to delegate this to someone. As you're doing it, if you're not under time constraints, just type up in very simple bullets what you're doing. What are you doing? You're actually documenting the process in which you do XYZ, right? So it's always good to start documenting those processes as soon as you can. They aren't going to be fancy. It may be 10 bullets, but at least you have a process. So the next time you do it, you can go back to those 10 bullets and say, okay, yeah, I remember now. I need to do this, and then I do that, and then I do that. And then eventually, when you have a virtual assistant, right? Maybe you're going to start off with a virtual assistant because that is maybe what your business can afford as you're growing. You can ask the virtual assistant to, help you really spell that out. Maybe you guys decide next week we're going to work on our processes. I have 8 documents with a bunch of janky bullets or a bunch of but we're going to turn those documents into actual processes that I've gotten better at or I know more about. And maybe at the end of that week, you have, some written processes, which will be helpful for your company. And the good thing is, of course, you can just build them over time. Again, ask your virtual assistant. And then maybe when you have an actual executive assistant that maybe you hire part-time, you can work to update them every year. And so you choose a certain part of the year, let's say the last quarter of the year, to revisit your processes to see if there's something that needs to be updated. Put it on your calendar that every year at the end of October, you're going to review your processes together. It just makes a really, really big difference. So just want to make sure you're thinking about that. Processes, aren't sexy, right? They're not something that people really want to talk about, but they really do help. Speaking of processes, the next thing you want to do is set up automations and systems early in the business. And here's the thing, you're not going to know when you first start out, okay, what are the automations that I need? What are the systems that I need to think about? But I really think that you should start thinking about systems almost as soon as you start your business. So when you build your website, what do you want people to do when they come to your website? Is that something that you want to do And when they come to your website, what are the things that you want them to do when they come? And then how do you how do you retain them, over time? So there's things that you can set up to make sure that visitors to your website, if you have, let's say, a lead generation tool, something to actually attract a lead and make them click and decide that they want to subscribe, that's something that you can start thinking about early in your business. And so that there are automations to help you do that, and many of these automations are very, very inexpensive. So you have companies like, almost all the companies that do email marketing, really. I currently use a system called Flowdesk. I started out with ones you've heard of, but then I decided to move to Flowdesk because it uses a very streamlined design, or it's a very streamlined aesthetic. And bottom line is there are tools within these email marketing systems that you can add code to your website so that you can actually develop something that's an attractive freebie or something. That freebie then helps you build your email list over time. And that's fantastic, because in a few weeks, actually next week, we're going to talk about how you can build your email list. And that's just one of the ways you do that. So that is an automation that you can set up early in your business. It doesn't mean that you're constantly going to be adding automations. As a matter of fact, I think you should, kind of take your time. What you don't want to do is set up automations that turn out not to necessarily, well, first of all, it may be something that you need to edit. So, just figure out what are those automations when you start out that will make your life easier, will save you time, potentially bring in more money, and then make sure you put those automations into action ASAP. Here's an example of, and I've used this example a number of times. Let's say you are a solopreneur. You just started your consulting business. You are the one doing the work. You're the one doing the business development. You're the one promoting yourself. You're the one doing all the things. And someone reaches out in your inbox, and it's really, really, it's from an organization you would love to work with, right? This may happen multiple times. Do you stop what you're doing to then respond to that person? Or do you want to have something in place that automatically responds to them, and then, basically requires them to take the next action? And then before you know it, you've scheduled a complimentary consultation. There are automations that you can put in place to make that happen. And this probably isn't a surprise to many of you, but for those of you for whom this may be, new information, just know that there are a lot of really inexpensive tools to help you do that as well. So I'm going to share something I probably should have started at the very, very beginning, but I think this is important. When I first started my consulting business, I landed my first client, let's say 4 to 5 months in. So I started the business in January. My first client that actually paid me for service was in May. They paid me a ridiculously low amount of money. I didn't know any better. I was geeked. I was excited, and I did what I needed to do. And then I think the next client was in September, but that client really wasn't a consulting client. I took on a contractual position, a 1099 role. I don't think I speak enough about this, but it's important that sometimes when you start your consulting business, while you're building your reputation and trying to build your client roster, take on 1099 roles. Number one, you get to practice what it's like to work for yourself as a contractor. Number two, you learn about how to engage with an external entity, your whoever has hired you. And there are a lot of things you can learn from that, how to navigate relationships and collaborations as an external entity with the company who contracted your service. So there's a lot you can actually learn from that. So here's some benefits, I think, of starting as a 1099 when you're early in your role as an independent consultant. Number one, you are adding to your already varied understanding of how different organizations are managed. One of the things that makes you a great consultant, or a person who's ready to be a wonderful consultant, or an experienced consultant, or a valuable consultant, that's probably a better way to put it, is that you bring value because you've worked in different work environments. Maybe you've had different types of roles. But I really think that companies are now, and they always have, understood the value of someone who has worked, maybe has a 20, 30-year career. That person with a 20, 30-year career, as long as they are early adopters of technology, and as long as they are willing to learn and be flexible, that's like one of the best kind of people you want to have as a consultant, because they know the tech that they need to be able to get the work done. They have 10, 20, 30 years of experience. And there is no replacement for that, right? The experience and the wisdom that comes with that experience. So that's part of the, again, that's the first reason why taking on a 1099 role is really, I think, a good thing, a good move for you to make when you're early in your role. And then, let's say you're a 1099 and then you land your first true consulting client. Then you learn, what is, that time management, right? Managing the time for your client. Your two clients is just that one is a consulting client. The other, of course, is the company that contracted, you're the contractor. And then you also learn how to do the following things remotely, I think. If you start out as a 1099 contractor, you are engaging with coworkers, you're leading meetings, you're analyzing documents, you're becoming a confidant of sorts. You get to sort of exercise and practice your management consulting services. That's when you actually provide advice and technical assistance based on your expertise. And you just learn how to speak as a representative of yourself, of your company, a lot sooner, right? So and then, of course, you learn the ability to initiate several discussions with different leaders within that organization. And sometimes, you have to negotiate, all the different things that are really good skills to develop as you become a consultant. Yeah, that's a really great Thank you so much, Takia. I appreciate it. Another thing is, so now, one of the things I forgot to mention, guys, is I have my lessons learned broken out in different categories. I just did the business structure category. And now we're going to do the generating business and revenue category. Again, lessons learned. I'm not, I'm going to also add that, hey, I'm not an expert. I'm just someone that's been doing this for almost 4 years. I've learned some things in 4 years, and some of these things you may find valuable and helpful. So the first thing in the generating business and revenue category is find out what the market wants, not what you think the market wants. Even though you may have all this experience, does the market really want that aspect of your experience right now? Or are they more interested in this other, right? So if you have, let's say, project management experience, you're an excellent project manager for software programs, but now they really want project management for this other area, or this, then maybe, definitely be willing to pivot, right? So, but whatever it is, once you figure out what they want, I implore you to create free tools and templates that provide the best overview of your service, and not necessarily free tools and templates that you can share. And so that's why you want it to be an overview, right? Because you don't want to put your information, your expertise out there on free tools, but they are enough to demonstrate your expertise. That means that you can start sharing them in different parts of the, you can share them in different areas. And when I say share, remember, I said, let's go back to the ways that you can have them come to your website, maybe get their email addresses. And so some of these free tools and templates will help you do that. And once you figure out what the market wants, use the language often and everywhere. So if they, for example, about 2 years ago, a lot of people were talking about DEI, and now we're talking about DEIA, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Because of some of the things that are happening in our country culturally, I'm seeing a difference in the language that DEI and DEIA consultants are using. And to me, that's an example of them basically adapting to a change in the market and then changing the language accordingly. So just want to make sure you guys are thinking about that. But it doesn't mean that you change who you are, change your services. Just make sure that the language you use, first of all, is aligned with your service, but is also aligned with what the market wants at right now. Definitely not saying, just kind of move with the trends and change as you go. Absolutely not. For example, right now, because I work in federal grants and compliance, all of those things, I started out talking about the difference between a grant writer and a grant manager. And the point, I guess the point I'm making is that federal grants, now the interest is in how can we get federal grants into, to grassroots organizations that typically aren't able to access federal grants. So initially I came out, started talking about grants and federal grants from a compliance point of view, grant management generally. But then once I learned that because of laws that have passed or because of movements that are happening in this particular administration, I now make sure that my language caters to those interests that have come up. So still doing basically the same thing, but I'm changing my language to attract, some of the minor changes that are happening in the industry. So I hope I explained that clearly. And then, of course, price your services based on the value of deliverable. I've shared this. I've talked about pricing quite a bit. And I provide a lot of information in the Client Attraction Masterclass. It is a masterclass that you can get right now on ReadySetGoConsult.com. When you go to the website, you just click on resources, I believe, and you can, below there, you'll find the blog, you'll find the Client Attraction Masterclass. You'll also find the Ultimate Consultants and Freelancer Starter Kit, which has been updated to reflect, several sections on how to, build, basically different things about your website, right? What are the website hosting companies you can consider? And then active links to those companies, which companies are also, are for hosting and web development, developing your website. And, for some people, they just want to know so that they can research it. Others want to know so that when they hire someone, they can at least speak the same language as the person that's actually going to do the work for them. So, but yes, and for those of you who are thinking, okay, well, one of the things I want to do is I want to price my services low because I want to get the experience. I can say that I did that. I think I did it, though, not necessarily strategically. I did it because I didn't know any better. So what I recommend you do is you give yourself a timeline. You may say, for the first 9 months I'm in business, I'm going to offer these services and I'm going to offer them at this price point to make myself an attractive selection for those companies who are looking into value and price. I can build my roster of clients, but as soon as I get as soon as I'm able to get to a certain point in terms of experience delivering some of these services, I'm going to increase my prices to better reflect, number one, what I've learned, because now I've actually delivered that service, and I have, some experience to add to what I already brought to the table before I started my business. And number two, you now have a better idea of what it entails, so you can actually now price accordingly. For example, there may be a service that you thought would probably take about 40 hours of your time. It turns out now that if you dig into the details, that'll actually take you about 70, 80 hours. You definitely now know that you need to charge a higher rate. And it doesn't need to be twice that. It could be 4 times that, right? Because it's not necessarily the time it takes to do it. It's the value of that deliverable to the client. And over time, you'll learn about how to price accordingly. There are still services where I sometimes think, am I undercharging for this? But I'm also aware of a few things in my market that make me, think that where I am is the right level, right? So I'm thinking that I've already seen where people are willing to hire me at this price point. And I can go up to a certain level. And so I basically developed, I guess, some knowledge over time. But There are other services that, because I know of how complex they are, I have no problem charging, multiple five figures, because I know what it actually entails. I understand the value of that. And so, that kind of evens it out, I guess. Another thing is, again, you garner the experience you need. And then once you get the experience at maybe, whatever price point you feel comfortable with initially, get testimonials. Get those testimonials early, and early in your business. If you know that you served the client and they were really happy with the service, email them. Maybe they sent you an email, right? And they said, oh, I've been really happy with this service. You did this, you did that, and it was, exactly the kind of quality that I expected. And I'm really happy, and my team really, is, excited with whatever you brought to the table. Then you want to really quickly email them and say, hey, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. Can I use this email as a testimonial? And in most instances, they'll say yes. So get those testimonials early. Another thing that I think I did not do early enough in my business is I didn't ask for referrals early enough, right? So happy and satisfied clients will refer you to others. I definitely saw a pickup of referrals. I would say probably 50% of the clients that I received this year are from referrals. That makes me feel great, because that means that we're doing something right, which I knew we were doing anyway, because I always shoot for excellence. But it was good to see that validated in the number of referrals that we received. So just want to make sure that I let you all know that from the very beginning. Start asking for referrals. It's a great way to get business. We've all learned about the know, like, trust factor. The know, like, trust factor is shortened because they've already developed a little bit of trust, because they were referred to you by someone they already have an existing business relationship with. All right. Now, in terms of promoting your business, there's so much I could write about this. One of the things I did, I would say this is one I probably made the fewest mistakes on, because I'm not sure why. I think because I knew there were, not sure why, but here are some things that I highly recommend that you think about for your business. Number one, we've heard this all the time. Actually, I can talk about a mistake as it relates to promoting my business. Is to figure out your niche. We've talked about that a lot, but it really is important. And then also lead with your niche, right? So when one goes fishing, they actually put on whatever, I can't think of the thing that they put on the hook, right? They put that because they put that there because that's going to attract the fish they want. And you want to do the same thing with your niche. And the mistake that I think I've made, and I sometimes wonder if I'm still making it, is because even though my niche and my specialty is in one area, I'm also very aware that people are interested in this other area, and that's a great way to bring in business. And I am still, teetering on whether I should eliminate this other service altogether and only focus on this other area where we really, really specialize, or keep our, opportunities and options open for this other side of the business or this other service. This other service also often requires that I subcontract with an external company to provide the service. And so it's not as profitable. I mean, so I'm still trying to figure that out, which again is an example of the fact that I haven't figured it all out. I'm just trying different things, staying consistent with the service and the quality, but, being open to different things. So I think that's where I'll leave that as it relates to, really still trying to teeter on my niche, or teetering on my niche. Definitely provide value, but definitely limit how much free advice you give. On those sales calls, and this is something where I'm also learning as well, provide enough tips and nuggets, just enough for them to know that you know your stuff, to demonstrate your expertise. But one of the things about consultants, and I know this, I've heard about this from others, I've read this from others, and I've done this early in my business, is sometimes you speak a little bit too much. You're sharing too much. You're giving away way too much free information. They're paying you for the information. So remember, as you get better, over time, you'll get better at only giving them just enough to help them understand that you know your stuff. And there are still times, interestingly, when I'm on sales calls and I'm very interested in a particular client. And so, I'll give a little bit more than I typically do, but it's done strategically because I know it's what's important to that particular prospect. And so I want to give them a little bit of taste of what we can do for them. So we're going to keep moving now. We're going to talk about the next category, which is operationalizing your business. And I think one or two of the other categories may fall here as well, but we've done it. We've already done it. So this is probably one of my top recommendations, and a lesson that I think I learned. Well, it's a lesson learned, and I want to make sure you guys learn this as soon as possible. Hire help ASAP. It doesn't have to be full time. It doesn't have to be a part time employee. It could be a 10-hour a week VA. It will make all the difference in the world. And for some of you who are like, well, I don't have any money coming in, absolutely not. Do not hire help if you don't have any money coming in. You should not go negative trying to get help. Absolutely not. But as soon as you start, earning a consistent amount, you know that you can consistently earn, let's say whatever it is you feel comfortable with, let's say 5, 10, 15, 20 grand a month, whatever that is, then, try not to hog it because you don't want to, spend the money on help. It makes so much more. You'll make more money getting help. I mean, a lot of people, it took me some time to really understand that. But when you're making 10, 15, 20,000 a month, whatever that time, the amount is, but you're trying to keep all of it, you're working so much harder to because now you're doing what your VA could do. You're doing the marketing by yourself. You're doing everything by yourself. So you're really not able to focus on that, the part of your business where you really are the best at doing it. And so it's best to get someone as soon as you can, 10 hours a week, 5 hours a week, whatever it is. Maybe this person's helping you clean up your emails, your inbox. Maybe this person is, you know, they're doing something that is probably not the best use of your time, but get a 5 to 10 hour a week VA. It really, really will make a big difference when you can. As soon as you see this person, demonstrate that they're maybe not the best person for the job, then change ASAP. Don't let them hang around and add stress to an already stressful situation, which is, of course, managing your own business. And once you have them, immediately decide what you're going to delegate to them. One of the things that I did early in my business, I don't remember if this was a tip I learned from someone else or just something I did one day out of desperation. I literally created a list in Excel of all of my tasks, everything that I do as a business owner. I was a solopreneur at the time. I didn't have any help, every single thing. And then I created another column. And in that column, I put, who could actually do the work, right? Is this something that I needed to be the one to do it? Or is there someone else that I could hire to do that? So in other words, I would put Patrice, my name, or the name, or actually, is this something an assistant can do? And so I was able to then sort by, that role. And then quite frankly, helped me build my first job description. So just want to make sure you're thinking through, a lot of the work that you're doing in ways that you can probably get the support that you need. All right, so we're going to pick this up. Just want to finish that out. Focus on delivery if you're a solopreneur. Focus on business development if you're growing the business. And then certainly focus on positioning yourself as the face of the business if you really want to catapult your business. And there are specific ways to do that. I'm actually learning that myself now. So just want to make sure you all are, thinking ahead about what your business looks like now and certainly what it will look like in the future. So I'm going to see if anyone has any questions. I see we still have, I think Taki is still on here with me. For those of you who have any questions on anything that I've shared, again, remember to please drop them in the comments. Remember to subscribe. This will be shared, in other areas. So I'm looking forward to getting as much feedback as I can. But I'm hoping that this information was helpful. There's so many more lessons that I can share. I've, made mistakes along the way. The idea is to make sure that you make the mistake, but you self-correct quickly. And but for the most part, because I've been very, what's the word, adaptive, and willing to put aside the fear and self, things that we do to sometimes question ourselves. I think just having that as an engine, those three things, being adaptive, pushing past self-doubt, pushing past fear, those things have really helped me push the business forward. And I think being willing to, when I say fear, I'm also talking about the fear of putting yourself out there. A lot of business owners find that really scary. They're used to operating in the conference room as the person that may say something, during a team meeting. Now they have to be that person that represents everything about their business. And so just want to make sure that you guys are thinking about that. Um, and as I've said before, you guys are probably getting tired of hearing me saying it, but it's true. You can't sell what you don't promote. I don't know who was the person that said that the first time, but it's one of the best quotes that I think I can use for new business owners. You can't sell what you don't promote, and so you've got to be willing to promote yourself. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. Next week we're going to talk about ways to build your email list. I've already shared one, but there are other ways to build your email list. And I've been building my firm's email list quite a bit this year, and which I, of course, enjoy, because that means that the community that I share information with our biweekly newsletter is growing. It means that there's a potential for, obviously, new business, not just sales of our products, but certainly, new clients that come on for our consulting services. So, that those, your email list is really, really important. So start thinking about ways that you can start building that email list and consistently build it over time, because it really can open up doors for you. I do have one final point about that. I've been in instances where I emailed proposals to, let's say client A. I know that client A is on my distribution list. I know that they're reading our emails. At least they're opening our emails, because quite a bit of that information can be, you can get a lot of that information on an email marketing system. And so I've seen in instances where, let's say, a day or two after I've sent an email, and I send out really informative emails to my community, that client who was sitting on a proposal reaches out. This has happened several times this year. Reaches out to say, hey, we've decided to move forward, or hey, we're still discussing it internally. I'll let you know by next week. So it's a great way, I think, to stay present for prospective clients, and certainly present for your existing clients who may decide to extend a contract, or again refer you for something else. So refer you to another potential client. So thanks again for those of you who hung around, and for those of you who are watching this after it's been recorded. I really appreciate you showing up. Share this information with anyone you think will be interested. Thank you so much. The video will be available to be shared probably in the next 30 minutes to an hour or so. But thanks for showing up. Abbas, I love the tips about finding your niche and refining it. Thank you so much, Abbas Sadie. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful night.